Alright, everybody. We're going to start out with a quote. Good morning. Good morning to all. Good morning to all. We're going to start out with a quote like we've been doing. And this was supposed to go with the gospel, but I think that's why I kind of doubled up for the last two readings of the gospel, just because this one seems to go a little bit better with what we're talking about. So I just decided to start this one with this one. Oh my goodness, this guy, he's a little crazy in the mornings, and he's very much rambunctious whenever I'm trying to focus on anything. Craziness. Alright, let's read this a little bit longer. Sand-strewn caverns, cool and deep, where winds are all asleep, where the spent lights quiver. Relax. Where the spent lights quiver and gleam, where the saltweed sways in the stream, where the sea beasts ranged all around feed in the ooze of their pastured ground, where great whales come sailing by, sail and sail with unshut eye, round the world forever and aye. She will start from her slumber when gusts shake the door. She will hear winds howling, will hear the waves roar. We shall see, while above us the waves roar and whirl, a ceiling of amber, a pavement of pearl. Singing here came mortal, but faithless was she, and alone dwell forever and alone dwell for life the kings of the sea. This is from the Grand Chartreuse. This is Matthew Arnold, 1822 to 1888. So this sea imagery, right? This oceanic imagery just reminds me of how things began in the very beginning, because we're talking about Genesis at this time. So this was the creation of the earth. So this imagery here, all about the beginning, all about how the earth was when it was covered in water. And then, as you can see at the end of this reading today, we're also going to talk about the earth being covered in water again. They talk a little bit about a mortal woman and a kings of the sea, right? But that's not as closely as related to the Bible. It's more just to set the tone for what we'll be discussing today when we're talking about the beginning and talking about Genesis. Hubby's awake too, by the way. You can hear. So, let's go ahead and begin. Huh? What do you think I'm doing, Papa? Yes, in a few minutes. I'm trying to finish it.
What time you gotta be there?
10. Uno momento. Let me go grab my coffee. Take a beat. 1 second. Let me go grab my coffee. Alright, let us begin. Good morning. Okay, so we're starting with Genesis, and the way it's formatted, I was trying to keep a theme every keeping in theme with like the 7s, 7, 17, 27, but sometimes I put a little bit extra in there, or I don't know if I omitted anything, but just to kind of keep the flow and keep it all cohesive, because we're not going over the entire book of Genesis. We're just, again, doing a little summary. Still takes a little bit of conceptualization and reading on my part, so I'm just trying to keep it as succinct as possible. Let's go ahead and begin this here. So we're going to Genesis chapter 1, verse 7. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on earth. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them, male and female. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Ashur. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. So those might sound a little bit familiar to you. I added that last one in because it's rarely ever discussed or picked up on, the significance of the rivers flowing from the Garden of Eden out into the lands surrounding Eden. So one kind of travels down to Africa. One, it's hypothesized to reach as far as India. But of course, if you're really good with geography and stuff like that, you might have heard of some of these rivers, but also you might have a better understanding on where these rivers actually flowed. The importance of that is just understanding how water functions, how rivers especially, they have their deltas and then they have their little, I forget what it's called, their little fingers that go all the way down. Rivers still function in a very similar way, same way as how it began and how it started. So it's because the water is cleansing things, and the fact that this water is coming from Eden is just special. So think about where the rivers begin and where the rivers end. And you can see lots of rivers all around the world, all throughout the world, and just understanding that significance just on the surface is very important. Just wanted to put that in there because they're very, very vital. We rarely talk about rivers, it's always about the ocean, but something that is often discussed in the Bible is water and the significance of water. And then just jumping to the beginning, God made the vault and separated the water from under the vault from the water above it. So a lot of people try to figure out what the water above, or the water on earth is. We have the sky that separated it, but what is that space above there? Like we're not familiar with the water above it. This could allude to the proximity of heaven and how close it was at the time. Not quoting any kind of specifics here, but it could allude to just, something, or just a watery galaxy or a watery space, which seems mystical, right? It seems like something that we're not familiar with and we don't understand. Even after reading this, I'm like, what does that mean? Not sure, but just something to take note. And then God set them in this vault of the sky to give light on earth. So them is referring to the stars, the sun, the moon. I think more the sun and the moon in particular. Again, they're a little bit personified, so also something to think about. God created mankind in his own image. We know what this means. The definition of image is a representation of the external form of a person or thing in art. So it's an external form, an external representation is an image. And in modern times, an image is something that's created graphically through using computer imaging. That's where the word image comes from. So it's interesting how that translation is there. Something external, right? Belonging to or forming the outer surface or structure of something. So it's an external image of God, something to also remember. It's not maybe exactly what he looks like, but it's an external image or representation of what he would look like. So just a little bit of switch up maybe to your perspective. Let's go ahead and continue. But you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. So, tree of knowledge of good and evil was a big deal, and we're kind of in the midst of celebrating Diwali. I'm honestly not sure if it passed or if it's coming up. think it just, it just took place, or coming, I don't know, don't quote me on that either. But good and evil, right? This opens people's eyes, and of course he's saying you will die. He wasn't lying when he said that they will certainly die, Adam and Eve, but he maybe wasn't saying like right away, but they will basically become mortal, which was the case for every person, including Adam and Eve. They died eventually, but they lived actually a very, very long time, as did their kids, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, how long the lifespans were, and then they were truncated at a certain point, which we will, I think, talk about either today or tomorrow. But he's just saying the pressure and your eyes are open, that's all great and amazing, but imagine just being aware, like we are today, of all the good and the bad things happening in the world. It's overwhelming. People that are empathetic, it can be very overwhelming and anxiety-inducing. So God knew this, and God knew you won't be immortal anymore. You will certainly die, and the stress and the pressure will be too much, right? But let's see what happens. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. To Adam he said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." So this kind of jumped from chapter 3 to chapter 4, but it kind of is related, even though the last verse there is talking about Cain and Abel, and God is speaking to the murderer of the two. So Abel, right? So he's speaking to him, saying you should have not done that, and it just relates here to Adam. He should have just not done that. He should have let his inner morals rule over the sin that was so tempting to them. Don't let the temptation overtake you. And look, what happens is, through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. What does that mean? Toil, work. You'll have to work for what you eat. It won't be given to you. Food is not free, as we all know. So through arduous work that we all have to go through at some point in life, arduous work, we have to earn to eat our food. Baby, we have to earn to eat our food. So that's a big thing too. Crazy. Thanks, Adam. Let's go ahead. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was building a city and named it after his son Enoch. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son named Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him." Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. So this time, we can see they're out of the garden. Now they're establishing society and civilization, having kids, doing all of that stuff. And they still have knowledge and recognition of who God is, because it's Adam and Eve, where they had such a close relationship with him. So, of course, their kids are going to know God, and so they would call upon the name of the Lord, and they would recognize God as their Lord. That's where it started. This is a real lineage, too. This is real stuff. People think, oh, it's all, what is it, like not a parable, but you know what I'm trying to say, like it's all kind of like mystical story, or a story with a lesson, but no, this is like real lineage, as we can trace it back and have all the things documented here. Let's continue. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Malachi lived a total of 895 years, and then he died. Altogether, Methuselah lives a total of 969 years, and then he died. When human beings began to increase in number, let me just go ahead and pause here for a second. Again, we're talking about the age spans, the length of their lives. So, of course, they die, right? But imagine living 800, 900 years. It does not seem real. It seems mystical. That's why people, read the beginning of the Bible and they're like, what is this? It's so unfamiliar to what we experience now. So it just seems crazy, but it's a very true fact. Let's go ahead. When human beings began to increase in their number on earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. For the Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of the old, men of renown. So the Lord said, pause. We're going to pause. I put page breaks in here so I can stop and talk about certain things, but they're just not showing up. Anyways, this is something that I think is oftentimes misconstrued. Saying here, this translation, the sons of God actually came down from the kingdom, from heaven, and started interloping with the humans. And they were, some people say that they were angels. Maybe some of them were like angelic type beings, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it was the angels that came down. I mean, it's clearly translated here as sons of God, which is a little different than being an angel of the Lord. But a lot of people think that it was, fallen angels that had came down and interloped with humans, and then that's what created the giants. Like the Nephilim were considered the giants, which were supposed to be very, very tall, like hundreds of feet tall. But in this case, maybe they were a bit bigger. It's not really saying, because the giants are usually seen as like the enemy, and there was a lot of negative connotation with the giants in biblical days. We'll learn more about that hopefully later. But it's saying here they were heroes of the old, men of renown. So it's not giving giant, it's not giving like fallen angels, it's not giving like punishment. They were very dutiful beings because they were the sons of God and then the children of the eloping with the human women. So it doesn't seem too terrible. They were famous. So that's what renown means. I have to check. I know I'm talking really fast and rushing. I apologize, but we're almost done. Okay, so the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. So this is interesting because the Nephilim were still on earth. The Nephilim actually survived by a godly way. We're not really super clear on how that takes place, but it's saying the Nephilim were on the earth in these days and also afterwards. So maybe they were there, maybe they're not. I'm not completely sure, but let's go ahead and go with the fact that they survived, because he's saying he's wiping the face of the human race. The only people that aren't human are the Nephilim, and the sons of God who had come down to earth, which a lot of people think of as the Egyptians, but we'll learn about that later, I guess. Anyways, he regrets. He's regretting all of the work, all of the animals, all of that, those whole 7 days that he took to make this come to be. He regrets. He's like, oh my goodness, which is sad, right? It's sad to think about that things were actually that bad, which they were. People were living, hundreds and hundreds of years, and they were just making a mess out of themselves. Imagine, we do so many wrong things in just 80, 90, 100 years. Imagine living hundreds and hundreds of years. You're bound to make plenty of mistakes. So God says he regrets it, and we're going to reset. We're starting over. Last little bit here, then we'll get into it, get into the meat soon. And Noah and his sons and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds and all of the creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark as God has commanded Noah. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. Every living thing that moved on the land perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, and all the creatures that swarm all over the earth, and all mankind. Crazy. Wild. A lot of people don't believe this had taken place too. They think, a bunch of different things about how it seems impossible. But there were plenty and plenty. I don't know if anybody's watching the Netflix thing about Earth. It's like a new series. Talks about dinosaurs, all that jazz. There were plenty of mass extinctions that had taken place. And it's almost like the surface of the Earth really had to reset several times. And I'm not sure, I didn't watch it fully enough to understand if there was a great flood, but I know there was a time where the earth was all water. It doesn't really coincide, honestly, biblically, but it's interesting. It's a good little show. But yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. We're getting into a little bit of drama, and I'm sure it's only going to get more intense. I'm only picking out the most interesting bits to discuss. We have a little context and understanding. Hopefully it flowed well enough for you to follow it without feeling like you're missing too much, and I'm going to try to keep it that way without getting too confusing here. But yes, just some knowledge, just some inner wisdom, and we're going to continue this and keep up with it so we have a good understanding and good study to partake in. Alright, you guys, I'm going to get ready to hop on the bus. I will see you in a little bit, which is not that long, probably tomorrow. Enjoy your day. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.